All right. So I was holding this back a little bit. I'm gonna have to get on my soapbox because I think you guys are crazy. I don't think we're in as bad a shape as you're making it seem, Sean. Like, yes, I get it. We need big man help. And here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Feast or Famine. I'm your guy, the real Kris Mac, here with some of my nearest and dearest. We got Mr. Chino and Mr. Patty Puts. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Ready to get into these topics? All right, cool.
Yes.
NFL honors, the end season awards. There were some winners, there were some losers, and there were some surprises. Sean, kick us off. What did you think about the NFL's annual awards?
I think for me, no-brainer. I've been saying it for weeks now. Lamar Jackson, MVP. I felt like it's a no-brainer just based on impact alone. He had his most passing yards of his career. He led the team in rushing, which when do quarterbacks lead their team in rushing? Let that soak in for a second. He lost his running back one early in the season. He led the league in yards per carry at 5.5 as a quarterback. He's the only player to ever pass for 3,000 and rush for 800 in a season twice. He was top 5 in touchdown to interception ratio. Offense was number 4 in the NFL. 13-3 record. First team All-Pro. Just makes sense. I know folks have been talking about Brock Purdy and CMC, and my argument for that is Brock Purdy's not even the MVP on his own team. So could there be an argument for Christian McCaffrey? Yes, but obviously we know this is a quarterback league, unfortunately. But I just feel like the impact that Lamar had made on this team, passing and rushing, just makes sense. What you got, Pat?
While I would love to agree with you, Sean, I don't really agree with that take. I'm sorry. So Christian McCaffrey is so obviously the offensive player of the year. I don't think they could have gotten it any more right. We're seeing through this playoff run that when the game is in Brock Purdy's hands, they're having a really, really difficult time moving the football. And then in the second half of that football game, they just hammer Christian McCaffrey, and what happens? They start scoring points, and they start winning football games. So I would say CMC definitely Offensive Player of the Year, and he would have gotten my vote for MVP. I totally agree with Lamar having a great year, and if they would have made it to the Super Bowl, I would be on board for that. But really, that's the reason why I love Christian McCaffrey. And the only other one is C.J. Stroud. They really got it right there. What a fantastic year. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I expect really, really great things from him. What do you think, Chris?
I think they got it right. It's a shame that the Ravens couldn't, let Lamar run the ball more during the Chiefs game. But, it is what it is. But, to all of Sean's points, led his team in rushing. Kind of like a generational talent at the position. We haven't seen, numbers like these maybe even ever. I mean, Michael Vick is probably like the closest thing I've seen to like Lamar Jackson, and he's a much better, I'd say much more consistent passer than I'd say Mike was. But yeah, I think they got it right there. Also, my man CMC, definitely a best running back in the league, best offensive player in the league, in my opinion. Yeah, so I'm not too upset with the list. What do we think about surprises? Were there any surprises? And losers, who do you thought should have gotten nods or more nods?
So one loser that really jumped out at me right at the beginning, unfortunately, DeMeco Ryans, the head coach of the Houston Texans. Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year this year, and DeMeco Ryans was very deserving. If there was an opportunity for two coaches to win it, he should have won it also. Obviously, we just spoke about C.J. Stroud and how good of a year he had. I don't think his year would have been as excellent if DeMeco Ryans wasn't his head coach and wasn't leading the way. great leader, young defense. I expect only bigger and better things out of the Houston Texans. And the only other losers that I could really say are the other rookies that had really, really great years that deserve the recognition. The Jahmyr Gibbs, the Sam Laporta, Puka Nacua, of course, our guy. Again, we wish we could give the award to more than one person, but unfortunately those guys didn't get it.
I'm about to go on a rant real quick.
Ooh, here we go.
I agree with what you're talking about. I think D'Amico Ryan definitely was very deserving. I think he got robbed of it, to be honest with you. He should have been the clear-cut winner here. He lost on a tiebreaker. He's a first-year head coach, 10-7 record, 4-2 in the division. He had a rookie starting quarterback. Young team. They won the division title. They beat the team that you just mentioned in the playoffs, Cleveland Browns, right? He has the offensive rookie of the year. He has the defensive rookie of the year. It all goes full circle. He was the defensive rookie of the year when he played in his first year on the Texans, and now he has the defensive rookie of the year. Just make it make sense for me. It's just clear cut. He should have been the coach of the year. I just don't get it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. But here's my rant. And yes, I'm a huge Raiders fan, but numbers don't lie. And I was not a big fan of Myles Garrett winning Defensive Player of the Year. For one, TJ Watt dominated in sacks, right? In 19, Myles Garrett had 14. But where I really get frustrated is, and maybe this is just my bias, I get really frustrated when it comes to recognition for what players do on the Raiders. If you take Max Crosby off of the Raiders defense, I'd go on a limb and probably say we're not winning any games. And I say that because of the impact that he makes on a team that for a while now on the defensive side of the ball we haven't had impact players. I think of the last person that was like an impact player was Nnamdi Asomugha, where he literally cut the field in half. Right, quarterbacks didn't throw his way. So when I think of Max Crosby's impact, I think of just look at the numbers. Again, numbers don't lie here. He had more sacks than Myles Garrett. He had more solo tackles than Myles Garrett. He had more tackles in general, almost 50 more tackles than Myles Garrett. He had more tackles for losses. He had more quarterback hits. He had almost 200 more snaps. He played 100% of the snaps. When do you have defensive linemen that play 100% of the snaps and have output, like have impact on the game? He played way more snaps than Myles Garrett. He had almost triple the amount of hurries. He almost had 20 more pressures than Myles Garrett. All these stats I'm throwing at you are impact stats. Where a player on a defense where, yes, later in the season we had Malcolm Kuntz really step up and play, but outside of that, Max is literally getting held every time he rushes the quarterback. Are they calling it? No, they're not calling it. Do other players get the same thing? Myles Garrett gets beat up. I get it. But dude, he's beating him in every single stat. Like what? So what defines defensive player of the year? Do the numbers not matter? What is it? Is it the record of your team? Because the Browns, yes, they had a better record than us. They made it to the playoffs. Defensively, yes, they're ranked higher than us. We're both defenses are top 10. Myles Garrett definitely had a way better supporting cast than Max Crosby. So make it make sense to me, because that just, out of all of the awards, this one hit home, and it's not just because I'm a Raiders fan. It's because stats matter. So,
well,
rant's over.
Let me ask you a question. And beautiful rant, by the way, very excellent. I loved it. You kind of touched on it a little bit. Do you think it comes down to the fact that he is one of the best defensive players on one of the best defensive teams in the NFL, and the fact that he's on a playoff team? And secondly, he is a well-known name in the league, which also contributed to him getting defensive player. Because I mean, outside of you talking about him, I don't really know much about Max Crosby.
So I'm gonna pass a question to both of you. When you think of most valuable player, normally is that the impact that he would make if you take that player off of a team? Are we all in agreement that's what normally an MVP is, right?
Yeah.
So you think of defensive player of the year, my mindset is the same. Defensive player of the year is if I take that player out of the equation, are they going to have the same output? Are they going to be just as good? If we take Myles Garrett off that Browns team, I still think they're a good defense because of the supporting cast that Myles Garrett has. They're no slouch. Now, if we look at the Raiders' defense, yes, later in the season, we were doing well. And I think that was more, to be honest with you, more coaching and scheme. Antonio Pierce had a huge impact on not just the entire team, but really on the defense. He had dudes that wanted to run through brick walls for him, which is huge. But again, numbers don't lie. If we take Max Crosby off this team, I'm telling you, I really would be a betting man and say we probably not win as many games as we won. And that's impact. I'm just talking about impact. That's one. And the other equation is, again, statistically, he had a better statistical year than Myles Garrett. So that's why I say make it make sense. We're talking impact, we're talking stats. Which one? Numbers don't lie. So is it more about the team or is it more about the player? Because we're talking about defensive player of the year, not defensive team of the year. So,
yeah, I would tend to agree with you, Sean. This one kind of seems like a popularity contest a little bit. Micah Parsons' take was that Myles Garrett gets double-teamed more than anyone else. Okay, you still need to see the statistics put on the paper. Like that, you can't measure someone's productivity by double teams, the amount of double teams they get. You still need to find a way to make the impact on the field with tackles and sacks. And I know Myles Garrett is a special talent, but yes, I totally agree that I don't think they got this one right. For the same argument for Max Crosby, I think TJ Watt should have been up there as well. I think this one, unfortunately, was the popularity contest.
And two last things I'm going to say this so we don't spend too much time on it. Max didn't get any votes in any of first, second, or third. Like, he didn't get any votes for defensive player of the year, which is crazy to me because, again, statistically, and yes, I just shared stats wise compared to Myles Garrett. Stats wise, this same thing you could put him against anyone else. The only person that really stood out more, and that's why I mentioned him first, was T.J. Watt. Yes, he had 19 sacks, which is 5 more than Myles Garrett and Max Crosby. He also had some interceptions because he played in some pass coverage, and he also had some touchdowns. So that's impact, right? So again, I'd also argue how's Myles Garrett winning over T.J. Watt? Again, it goes to, all right, are we going based off because the Browns were more successful than the Raiders and the Steelers? So then is it a team award or a player award? So that's my concern. The other thing I would say to that, and I heard that take from Michael, like, everybody knows who Aaron Donald is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Donald is probably, you could probably argue, as the most notable person that gets double teamed all the time. And because he's a defensive tackle. He's never won an MVP award. But you're telling me because he gets double teamed, he should win MVP? No. I don't hear that. In 2018, Aaron Donald had 20 and a half sacks. And yeah, I guarantee you that whole entire season, if we look back, he was getting double teamed all the time. Because he's not human. But that's not an argument for why you win defensive player.
I mean, it's not an argument because, like, if you're saying Max Crosby put up better stats than Myles Garrett, however, Myles Garrett was double teamed 60% more of the time. If we're looking at just like solo man-on-man matchups, the double teams do matter to some degree because, like, if I get free reign, just me man-on-man, and my stats are better than yours, but you're getting doubled every single time and your stats are similar to mine, that means you're garnering more attention, which means it's harder for you to get to the quarterback to get tackles. So you would probably have better stats than me if you had single man coverage.
100% makes sense, and we can look up those stats and we can share them later on, because I guarantee they'd be close or not better. Because if you look at, you just think of coaches. If there's one guy that's going to disrupt the game, I'm going to double team. I'm going to scheme against him. So you can't tell me that Myles Garrett is the only person in the NFL that was getting double teamed.
Oh no.
Like I told you, there's plenty of times, and I could pull up highlights for days where you could clearly see Max Crosby get held every time he rushes the passer. And I'm not saying that everyone else doesn't do that, and that's why that's not part of my argument. Again, my argument is impact and stats, which should declare why a player is the best out of all the players. It shouldn't be, he had a higher double team percentage, which that stat is out there, and we can use a Google machine to find that. But come on, make it make sense to me. It's just
fair.
I'll take the ratings out of it. We can take the equation out of it and just look at again stats.
Listen, you asked to make sense. I'm just trying to come up with explanations as to why. Real quick, just for me, I wanted to have one honorable mention. Comeback player of the year, Mr. Joe Flacco. You know, this man was sitting on his couch at the beginning of the season, watching everybody else play. Cleveland gave him the call, and my man comes in and leads them to the playoffs. Jersey guy, right over the bridge here in Autobahn. Just happy for him, and like he gets to continue his career. All right, moving right along, shifting gears to NBA. We're at that time of year. A lot of teams are making their pushes for the postseason. Trade deadline just passed. We got winners and losers. Pat, what do you think about all the last-minute trades that were made on Thursday? Who won? Who lost? And give me some surprises.
Well, it was a busy day. There was a lot of trades. It's pretty awesome. I love that the day of the trade deadline when everybody's trying to actually get better and not just sitting on their hands a little bit. So the first team that I thought won was the Philadelphia 76ers. I really like them going after Buddy Hield. I think he's going to fit really, really well into their offense, especially when Joel comes back, obviously. He's a 3-and-D guy. He could score for them. He's going to take a lot of pressure off of Maxey, and he's going to let Tobias Harris do what he could do naturally rather than try to score one-on-one a lot. They also swapped Cam Payne for Patrick Beverley. I'd say the talent level is fairly close there. Payne is 5 to 6 years younger, and they got a second-round pick. Beverly has the ability to get under people's skin, but I feel like Cam Payne is a little bit more of an asset as a backup point guard. He played really, really well during the Phoenix Suns run a couple years ago. And the other winner I have is the New York Knicks, of course. How could they not be? So I feel like Burks obviously is a Thibodeau favorite. He played with them back in 20 to 22. He's going to play great defense. He's going to make open shots. And Bojan is a scoring threat from the outside. He's a great shooter. I'm very interested to see whether he starts for the Knicks or not. So this trade plus the OG trade, I'm very, very happy with the state of the Knicks right now.
Can we just copy everything you just said and use that for my piece? Is that something that you're allowed to do, or is that not like a?
Hey man, you can do what you want. Sure.
No, listen. I agree entirely with everything you just said. In the same order, I think that the biggest winners were the Sixers. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, huge Sixers fan. I caught myself trying to convince him that this Buddy Hield trade just makes huge sense, and it's a huge steal. Because you just look at what Buddy Hield has done and then why he got traded. Prior to this season, he was a starter. He started over 70-plus games. But then this season, things changed. Tyler Halliburton kind of took over the team and took minutes. And you saw Buddy Hield take a step back. This dude can hit over 40% from three. He can play defense. He's not a flashy guy. He's going to do his job. He's going to stay in the gym. I was watching his interview after the game yesterday because I was peeped. I wanted to check out how he did, him and Cameron Payne. which they both did very well with Maxey not even being there. And he's just a humble dude. Funny story, me and my wife were on a honeymoon in the Bahamas. Buddy Hield is from the Bahamas. It was a all-inclusive resort. The last day we were there, we were sitting at breakfast, and our waiter, we were just talking about where we were from. We were like, yeah, we're from the Philadelphia area, blah, 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 blah. And then we started talking about sports, and I mentioned basketball and how I like basketball. And it was Buddy Hield's brother.
What?
And it's our waiter. And I remember because he had brought it up in the conversation. He had said, yeah, my brother plays in the NBA. He's from the Bahamas. He's like one of the only players from the Bahamas. I was, wait, is your brother Buddy Hield? So fast forward to today, I was like, all right, I got to check out this dude's first game. So trade-wise, again, I think it's a huge steal for them because I love Buddy Hield's game. He's 3-and-D. He's going to give them – you're going to give him more minutes than he was getting. And he's probably going to be a starter, depending on what they figure out rotation-wise. But I think he'll be able to hit 40% from three. I think he's going to be a defensive asset to them, which they're kind of missing. I think Kelly Oubre wasn't he's not panning out completely to what they expected, but I think it'll help kind of balance things out. Cameron Payne, to your point, Pat, I think he might get some minutes as starter at point guard, to be honest with you, depending on how they're going to do the rotation. If you compare him to how the output of Patrick Beverley, he had 20 plus points yesterday. He's more aggressive than Pat Beverley. He can score, he can facilitate, and I think what that also allows is because the fear that I had before the trade was, all right, is Maxey going to have to run point all the time? I think for him to be successful, it has to be a balance. Like there's going to be moments where he doesn't have the ball in his hand, but this is going to allow him now to play off the ball a little bit more, and that's scary. So I think the Sixers won the trade deadline. I think it's huge. I think the only concern I would have as a Sixers fan is the unknown of Embiid. Like I think right now they're banking on him coming back. And you all know how I feel about injuries and us banking on the Knicks and injuries. Like, all right, we gotta hope that they're gonna come back. But you really don't know when Embiid's coming back, and they're essentially banking on it. They're saying, all right, we're gonna go get these guys that are gonna help us win right now, and hope that time playoff comes, we make it, we're in the top 8, Embiid comes back and he saves the day. So either way, I think they won the trade. And Knicks wise, yes, I think it gives us huge depth, which a lot of teams, like successful teams, need depth, especially where we're injured and we have a lot of folks that are banged up. I think we got some steals here. So again, that's why I said, can I copy and paste what you said? Because I agree 100%. Chris, what you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big ones were Philly and the Knicks making some big moves to kind of shore up. In spite of some injuries that we got going on. I like some sneaky trades that didn't really get talked about too much. I like what the Mavericks did. They got P.J. Washington from the Hornets, and they got Daniel Gafford from the Wizards. They really needed to shore up their front court. They needed some size and some more consistency shooting wise, and PJ I think was kind of wasting away behind a bunch of other guys in Charlotte. So I think he's going to get an opportunity to possibly be an impact player with them, playing alongside Luka and Kyrie. Also, I like what the Thunder did, getting Gordon Hayward. Yes, Gordon Hayward, you're not getting Utah Jazz Gordon Hayward, but you're getting a veteran guy who's been an all-star and a 20-point scorer in the league, to add it to a young team that's kind of doesn't have a lot of experience, and they're a top seed in the Western Conference. I think having that kind of veteran presence on their team might solidify some stuff for them. So I really like what they did. What do we think about the state of the Knicks right now? Because obviously we were talking about in other pods, we needed to shore up the bench and get some consistent playmaking and some scoring off the bench. we bring back the man himself, Alec Burks, back to the Knicks. Sean, your floor is yours. What do you think about the state of the Knicks right now, and how do you think we did with the trade?
So I'll start with the last thing you said with Burks. I think that's a solid pickup. It's a solid veteran for this semi-young team, especially going into the playoffs. Plays defense, does his job. He may give you 10 to 15 points, but he could possibly, if the opportunity arises, he could give you 20. So he has the potential to do that. I think, and here's going to be my concern, is we don't have a big man right now. And you can tell me, you can throw these names out there, but it ain't it. And what we're seeing right now is, our hope was that Mitch Robinson's going to come back and Haverstein's going to play that role until he comes back. But now Haverstein's hurt, and he's probably hurt because we got him out here being a starting center, and he's not a starting center. It's just, and who do we have? We didn't go out and get anybody, right? We didn't go out and get any big man. So again, it's the same thing I said about the Sixers. It's like we're hoping that everything works out with Randall, everything works out with Mitch, so that when the playoffs come, we have our guys. But again, I think from the big man position, I think we're lacking. We just signed Taj Gibson to another 10-day contract, but unfortunately, he's not it. I know he has a relationship with the head coach, but I think that's an opportunity. But again, I like the Alec Burks. I like the trades we made. I like what DiVincenzo's doing. He's really stepping up. Josh Hart is turning me around. I know I mentioned on the previous pod he had a triple-double, but even since then he's been really, the output has been there. So I like where we're at. I like that the Sixers are taking a hit and we're kind of just sitting where we need to be sitting at 3 and 4. I'm curious to see where if maybe we can get to that second seed if the Bucks, because I know the Bucks got some things going on, and yes, they got Pat Beverly and he had a big game yesterday, but I think that's just a one and done, to be honest with you. So I like where we're at. I'm trying to be devil's advocate in regards to the injuries that we have. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, pretty much what you said before about copying and pasting my take to yours. It's pretty much the same exact thing. So obviously, super exciting times for the New York Knicks. They're playing great basketball. With the roster, if everyone's healthy, I think they're definitely built to compete in the East. But obviously, like you said, the real concern is injury uncertainty. They have really good depth if everyone is there. They really, really need Mitch and Ihart to be healthy in order for them to compete. If they're not there, I don't think we're going to be one and done in the playoffs. Maybe 2 rounds, but we need someone big in the middle. Precious and Randall, especially Precious, has been playing great. I had no idea what we were getting in him, and he's been a revelation. Double-double guy most nights. He could score the bucket. It's nice to see. But I have to go through a list of names. So Jericho Sims, illness, okay. Jacob Toppin, Charlie Brown, and Taj Gibson were 3 guys that were running up and down the court for the New York Knicks the other night. I know that they're dealing with injuries and everything like that, but we need to continue to win games in order to have some sort of home playoff series in New York. It's going to be so huge once playoff time comes to have that home court advantage. So I really, really, really would have liked to see them get one more big body. Just because of the injury uncertainty. Robin Lopez was traded for cash considerations. Kelly Olynyk was out there. I thought there were bodies to get. It's just maybe one more move could have really helped the Knicks. But I'm talking for the perfect roster. I totally understand that, there are limitations and they only have so many deals that they can make. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen one more big. What do you think, Chris?
All right. So I was holding this back a little bit. I'm going to have to get on my soapbox because I think you guys are crazy. I don't think we're in as bad a shape as you're making it seem, Sean. Like, yes, I get it. We need big man help, for sure. Okay? Jericho Sims has been serviceable in spots at big man. He just has an illness. He's not out for a significant amount of time. Ihart, yes, he's been getting banged up, but he's also been on a tear at center playing fill-in for Mitchell Robinson. And Mitchell Robinson, if you remember, we couldn't put him on the exemption list as far as like getting his salary taken off the books for this season because he's progressing to come back. There's even reports saying he's doing on the court work as we speak, and he should be back after the All-Star break. So I think right now, getting healthy or getting players that are injured back healthy and playing for the last push of the season is like utmost importance for the Knicks. I'm not worried about any of these guys coming back until I get number 11 back, okay? Because as long as we have Jalen Brunson in the lineup, we have astronomically better chances than if we get our centers back playing, okay? Because number 11 is what makes everything go, okay? I need to get Brunson back. I need to get Randall back. And I think secondarily, the most important person to get back is OG, okay? Because if you can't lock down the other team's best wing player, then you're basically gonna have what happened to us against the Mavericks the other night, where Luka and Kyrie are able to just do whatever they want. And we're gonna see tougher offenses in the playoffs. So I really need OG to get back. Okay, but getting back to the trade, it does help us in the short term because a lot of the things that we need while we're waiting to get players back is scoring the basketball. We have to be able to keep up with these other teams. Burks has shown in multiple spots that he's able to facilitate, and he's shooting 40% from three, which is like tops in the league. Hell, I even remember, the 21-22 Knicks team where Kemba goes out and Burks is basically playing point guard, which is like, I don't want that, every game, but if I can get it in like fill-in moments, maybe Jalen comes back and he can get spelled, and then Burks can run and facilitate the offense, so we can at least get Jalen some rest. And then getting Bogdanovich, man, like it's another guy, another body, another bigger body, another guy who can score and consistently shoots the three well. So like, the Knicks were already like pretty high as far as like 3-point percentage in the league, especially since making the first trade at the beginning of the year. Now we add two more capable scorers that also shoot the ball efficiently. So I think you pair those two guys up, and with what DiVincenzo is doing, I think we're going to be really formidable, and we can at least like weather the storm until we get back to full strength. So, rant over. That was my whole Knicks take.
Listen, I hear you, and I'm with you. Remember what I said? I said I like where we're at. I like where we're sitting. I just, in the back of my mind, I just want to make sure that we're not being we're not being necessarily pessimistic, but just understing that is an opportunity. And I just want to make sure I'm clear. Like, yes, I love where we're at. I love the trades. Both of them, again, they're going to bring consistency. They're going to bring veteran leadership to a young team. And yes, they're going to do things that, unfortunately, I feel that Grimes wasn't bringing to the table. Consistently can hit the three, right? Spot up, hit the three. And also with Bogdanovich, he can score. And that's what I was saying before on the previous episode. Like, we needed another person that could come off the bench and score, like create their own, and he can do that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he was doing it on the Pistons. So I love the trade. I'm just fearful in regards to the injuries because I want to be a realist in that aspect. But yeah, I like where we're at. But injuries is something that you can't really control. Mm-hmm. So that's my thoughts.
And Kris, you did bring up a great point with Alec Burks being able to play the backup point in desperate situations. Just because watching the games that Brunson's been out, Deuce McBride is playing very well, but he's not quite there yet as a point guard. I think he needs another year and a half of development. He's shooting the three well, he's scoring the bucket, but I think as far as a straight-up point guard, he needs like that one more year. And Alec Burks will obviously help that down the stretch the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think Deuce's game right now is he's more of like a 3-and-D option, but obviously he can't guard like every position. He's definitely, point guards, maybe some smaller two guards in the league, be a little bit of a nuisance. But I think where he's seen a lot of expansion in his role is he's shooting lights out from three as well. So his shooting coupled with like DiVincenzo's shooting has really like kind of kept us afloat in a lot of games. So I definitely agree with you, Pat. I think like the next step for him is working on his playmaking, getting other guys involved, or even just making better decisions with the basketball when he has it in his hands.
Yeah, and listen, I think that one thing we also want to make sure, and I'm going to counter my own point. It's still early in the season, right? We're about to be at the All-Star break. So again, I'm with you, Chris. Like, I like where we're at. I like what I see. I like the trades we made. I like the OG trade originally, and I like getting Bogdanovich because we needed somebody that could score on their own. So I think we're building a solid core. If everything works out, Jalen's healthy, OG's healthy, Randall's healthy, Mitch comes back, Ihart back, we're gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
That if was there. That if.
Listen.
If that all happens.
Listen, me and other Knicks fans have like been saying this for a while. Is like, when we're gonna make a move? When we're gonna make a move? This year, we've made a ton of moves to compete now, and honestly, on paper, the way the team is constructed and seeing the potential way that they can play, on any given night, I think the Knicks can beat any team. It does. And in the playoffs, health is a factor. Getting hot at the right time is a factor. So I'm not necessarily afraid of any team going into a 7-game series. I think Boston obviously is still the team to catch in the East, and that's honestly the only team I'm really worried about because everybody else can get got. If I'm being completely honest.
But listen, what did I say last week? Who did I say was sleepers? The Cavs. What's happening with the Cavs right now is exactly what we're hoping for. Injured guys coming back, and look what they're doing. I think they've won their last 8. I think they're like the other day I saw like they were like 14-1 in the last 15 games. Like they're getting healthy right now, and you can see that. They're still like the team that I would say in the East. I'm not saying that we're afraid of them, but I think that's a good team, and they have depth, especially with Mobley and the way Jared Allen's playing.
Right.
I do not want to see a healthy Joel Embiid in the playoffs now with Buddy Hield next to him and Campaign and Tyrese Maxey doing whatever he wants. I think the Philadelphia 76ers, if all healthy, could be a very, very dangerous team. If Mitch is back and he could somehow contain Joel, that is obviously the ideal situation for us, but the Sixers are going to be dangerous.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If the Sixers get Embiid back, the Knicks need to be at full strength, particularly at center, because you're going to have to throw multiple guys at Embiid to kind of slow him down, whether it's, Mitch, Ihart, Precious, Sims, Randall. Like, we're going to have to throw everybody his way to give him like different looks. So, yeah, I think the All-Star break right now is coming at a good time, and yeah, we're banged up, so it gives us a couple weeks to kind of like get everybody right. But yeah, we definitely we're on the cusp. I like Sean said, I like where the team is at right now. Transition.
And ideally, hold on, real quick. Ideally, where would y'all want us to finish? So like standing wise, I'm looking at the standings right now. You got Celtics 1, Cavs 2, Bucks 3, us at 4, Sixers 5, Pacers 6, Heat, Magic, Bulls, Hawks finish out the top 10. So right now, if the playoffs started today, we'd be hosting the Sixers without Embiid. But to your point, Pat, do we want to face a healthy Sixers team in the first round?
No, definitely not.
What do we think?
Let's face the Magic.
Okay. Well, they're in the play. They'd be in the play-in, right? Because they're they're 8 seed right now. So they'd face the Bulls first, which I think they'd wipe the floor with the Bulls. To be honest with you, and then you'd have Hawks Heat, which the Heat aren't scary to me, but I feel like they're low key. They're low key, like sneaky. Like if they make it to the playoffs, they're going to be competitive.
Yep. Jimmy Butler's Mr. Big Game, so you can't let that guy get in the playoffs.
They'll wipe the floor with the Hawks.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think the Knicks should push for that second seed. I think that would be the best spot for us. We'll potentially avoid Boston, and I think all the other teams can get got, man. Like that's just how I feel about it. It's like I'm not really tremendously afraid of any other teams outside of Boston, and it's like if we're gonna go against Boston, we got to go against Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, White. Like they are stacked with Drew Holiday backing them up on as their defensive player of the year. So yeah, give me 2 seed or nothing for me, honestly. Like if we got to fall to like maybe the 3 or 4 and then maybe run into like Cleveland or run into an Indiana, like I think we can manage both of those teams.
Yeah. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of the Pacers. I'm not afraid of the Magic, Bulls, or Hawks. I wouldn't want to face Miami Spurs. I'd rather face the teams I just mentioned. I think 2 or 3 is probably the best spot.
Mm-hmm.
The Celtics do match up well against us. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Oh yeah,
they do match up well. And again, I'm still on that Cleveland Cavs train, man. I think they're a sleeper. We'll see how it pans out, but yes, to your point, I'm not afraid of. We can beat the Bucks. We can beat the Sixers. I just wouldn't want to face them healthy in the first round. Like I'd rather second round face them.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of them, yeah, I'm good. I'm with you. I'm not really afraid. I think we have really good chances, and if we're fully healthy, like we keep talking about, we are dangerous, very dangerous, and
Deepest roster in the East.
Deep. Because if everyone comes back, what's that rotation going to look like? Is everyone healthy? If everyone's healthy, what's our playoff start 5?
Yeah, what do you got, Pat?
You got Jalen at the point, right?
Yep.
Go ahead, Pat. You got Jalen at the point. Who's playing the 2 to start? DiVincenzo?
Gotta be Dante, right? The way he's playing, or does Bogdanovich?
Well, he's more of like a 3.
Okay, then who's playing the 3?
It's either Bogdanovich or OG.
Okay, and then Randall at the 4, Mitch at the 5. So we're talking about Dante, Bogdanovich, or OG. We have to start 2 with them. I think Bogdanovich comes off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you need the scorer off the bench, like I've been saying. Like we need another scorer to create off the bench.
Yeah, honestly, I'm probably running Devo at 2, and honestly, I'm running iHeart at the starting 5 because Mitch coming back. Mitch gives you a lot as far as like maintaining and holding down the paint, but iHeart kind of like opens up the floor for like all this shooting that we've been having. He can kind of facilitate a little bit at like that elbow, like top of the key. So like I think a lot of like the free flowingness of like ball movement and the way we've been like scoring the basketball lately is because we have more of a versatile big that's not just like back to the basket or just a rim protector. Now iHeart's been doing a serviceable job rim protecting. He's like averaging like 2 blocks a game, but Mitch is a much better defender. I'm just worried about giving him starter minutes right away after being out for so long. So like bringing him along in the second unit, I think would be more beneficial. So, but yeah, Bogey, Burks, Hart, Mitch, and then Precious at the 4. I mean, are we?
Listen, I was just gonna say, Tibbs goes with he sticks to his rotation, like his set number, right? So you think about it, we're usually around like 8, maybe 9 people are gonna play. Like
last year he ran a 9-man rotation, so
9-man rotation. We got more than 9 people that can rock.
Yeah, no.
So is he gonna change his ways, or is a Precious and a McBride gonna sit?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Because Burks is not sitting. Bogdanovich is not sitting. That's 2 bench players there. Josh Hart's not sitting. That's 3. That's 8. You're already at 8. Hart, that's 9. So these other dudes, they're not going to see the floor. Precious is not going to see the floor. McBride's not going to see the floor.
I don't know, they
unless Tibbs changes his ways and he lets people rock.
Listen, I've watched Tibbs as the Knicks coach for now 4 years. Okay, 2 things he's very consistent with. He only plays his guys, and he only plays his guys, and he only plays guys that he trusts. So, and by trust, it means you're going to go out there and you're going to play defense. Like, you're not going to like make a lot of like costly turnovers. You're gonna like play within the flow of the game. So I think a lot of the guys that have been brought in are Tibbs guys. So when you look at even like Precious is getting a lot of playing minutes, yes, due to injury, but because he's a Tibbs guy. He plays really good defense. He's like a Siakam light, if I had like a comparison. Ihart is a Mitch guy, is a Tibbs guy. Hart's a Tibbs guy. I have a question mark about Bogey, but the big thing with him is like, yes, the shooting is important, but Fournier has the record for most 3-pointers in a single season for the Knicks, and he didn't ever see the floor. So I think it's really going to come down to matchups, and honestly, I can see him going with like whoever's got the juice on any particular game. If you're playing good D and you got it going, I could see him leaving like a Precious out there, or leaving like a Bogey out there. So yeah, I mean, I could see him extending it to 10. I could see like some spot minutes for Deuce as well. Deuce I think has like earned some playing time this season with the way he's been playing.
I think Precious is definitely going to get his minutes too, just because of the contrasting style he has with Julius Randle. He's a much, much different player. He runs the court a little differently. He doesn't need the ball in his hands as much to be effective. So that's why he's so good playing alongside Jalen Brunson and Dante.
Cool, makes sense. Yeah, I think we're it's an exciting time. I don't think I've been this excited for a postseason as a Knicks fan in a very long time. So we just need to get everybody back healthy. I think that's like the biggest thing. We're doing bets.
Best bets.
Best bets, baby. Hey, let's go. Patty, what do you got?
Alrighty, guys. Once again, all these bets are going through DraftKings. These are the current numbers that I checked this morning. My best bet for today is going to be CMC, Christian McCaffrey, the running back for the San Francisco 49ers. He's going to have over 33.5 receiving yards in the football game. Unfortunately, Brock Purdy's been having a bit of a tough time finding his receivers sometimes when there are some openings, and he's been checking down a ton to Christian McCaffrey. Also, the Kansas City Chiefs defense, they have a great pass defense, rushing the passer, and they're going to get after Purdy, so he's going to be checking down all day. Sean, I have a question for you. I have Pacheco. I have a lot of money on Pacheco, 67.5 over. I just heard Jerick McKinnon's coming back. Is that going to hurt my bet?
I don't think it's going to hurt from a rushing standpoint. Like I like Pacheco getting over 17 carries. I think it just opens up the offense for Kansas. I saw that the other day, and I was like, I think this is huge. If anybody doesn't know, because in the playoffs especially, Pat Mahomes likes Jerick McKinnon, but I think that's more in the passing game. So I think that hurts Pacheco in either receptions or receiving yards. I've seen some bets out there like Pacheco over on receiving yards, but with Jerick McKinnon coming back, no, they're going to pound the rock when we get closer. When they get closer to the end zone or when they've been passing downs, Jerick McKinnon's going to get touches.
Excellent. Agreed. And then I have one NBA bet for today that I'm loving. I'm jumping all over the Orlando Magic -4.5 in Orlando against the Chicago Bulls. I know the Bulls are playing much better of late. They've won 2 in a row on the road. Orlando is a difficult place to play, and the Orlando Magic are an NBA leading 34-18 against the spread this year. So I'm going to jump on that and hammer that.
All right, it's time for our favorite segment. Is it feast or is it famine? Mr. Chino.
Which one is it?
Which one is it?
All right, so there's been some, different topics going around recently, especially with RP Mamba had his statue revealed, which was amazing, great event. Actually saw Shaq cry, which brought a tear to my eye. But he had a hot take that I want to see where y'all heads are at. So, feast or famine, is Shaq and Kobe the greatest duo ever? Chris, what you think?
All right, so we have to look at famous duos in the NBA, and does Shaq and Kobe compare? So I think so. We're putting them up against like who? Like Magic, Kareem, putting them up against Jordan and Pippen, putting them up against Stockton and Malone. I mean, considering
Russell and Kuzi,
that's like
McHale.
that's a little bit before my time, but okay, we could throw them in there too. Yeah, I mean, I think I would probably feast on Shaq and Kobe, best duo ever, of all time. You had two guys best in their positions in the primes of their careers. It was pretty much like a foregone conclusion that the Lakers, that especially that 2000s to like 2004 Laker run was like, they were unstoppable. Both of them together, it was literally just like, all right, nothing you were doing. Shaq, arguably one of the most dominant players of all time. Kobe, the closest thing to MJ we've ever seen. Also one of the greatest players of all time. Yeah, I mean, no shade to like, Stockton, Malone. Maybe Jordan, Pippen is probably like the most compelling argument you can make for best duo of all time. But in respects to the great Mamba, late great Mamba, I'm gonna give it Shaq and Kobe.
Chris, I love it. I am also feasting on this take. I think Shaq and Kobe are the best duo to ever play the game. Just as far on a personal level, two of the most specially talented and most influential NBA players of our time. Shaq changed the game. They had to start doing hack-a-Shaq, because he was too dominant on the inside. And Kobe, obviously so special. He was one of one again, him and Michael. He on his first interview with Michael, when he got to meet him, he told him he could beat him one-on-one. That is a special kind of confidence. They won the championships together. They did all this despite not even liking each other a whole lot. So just the talent was so immense between these two, and their abilities were so great that they didn't even like each other, and they still drove the Lakers to the championship. I'm going to feast on this. Love MJ and Pippen, obviously. Kareem and Magic popped up in my head, but they're a little before my time, and I don't think they're as physically talented as Shaq and Kobe were during their heyday.
So here's what I'm gonna say. Let's just take rings out of it and just look at the athlete and look at stats. Let's look at stats here. Shaq and Kobe together. Here's some stats for you. Together, they both averaged over 20 points per game. Shaq, most dominant big man ever. I don't care what anybody says. I know there was an interview where he had said he's not the best big man ever, but he's the best big man ever. I don't care what anybody says. Dude averaged 27 and 12. All right, and yes, Hack a Shaq was created just for him. And yeah, y'all know how I feel about Michael Jordan. And Kobe Bryant is 1B. Like, he is a complete clone of Michael Jordan. Which kind of leads me to my next topic, but I would feast on Kobe and Shaq being the best duo ever, because I just think that yes, Michael Jordan's my GOAT, but if you just look at statistics, Scottie Pippen, and this is what I hate about the argument about that, Jordan had Scottie. There's a lot of times, more often than not, that Jordan carried Scottie, just FYI, okay, on his back. But that's just Michael Jordan. That's why he's the GOAT. But just statistically, Scottie wasn't doing what Kobe was doing.
Well,
in that Batman Robin role.
Here's the only pushback I will give you. Scottie might have not put up the same amount of numbers as like a Kobe and Shaq. Like, obviously Jordan was dropping like 30 a game, and also locking down on defense. But a lot of the times, Pippen was guarding the best player on the opposing team. Like, Pippen was like, Pippen kind of, I'm not comparing, I'm not saying they're the same, but if you take like OG from the Knicks and then you take Scottie Pippen, they have very similar builds and their utility is very similar. Whereas like Scottie would guard 1 through 5 and be able to lock down a lot of different players, and it opened up a lot of lanes for where Michael could like work and cook. So like from that standpoint, I'll say like the Batman Robin dynamic is a little bit more valid. But yeah, I think overall, if you're talking about like 1A, 1B, both guys on their game can completely change a series. If Shaq don't gotta go in, Kobe gotta go in. If Kobe don't gotta go in, Shaq gotta go in. So it's like pick your poison at that point. So yes, that's where I would give them the nod over Pippen and Mike.
Yeah, 100%. Look, listen, Jordan and Pippen would literally go back and forth on who's guarding the best player. They'd be like, you know what, I got to go drop 40 real quick. Go take care of this dude over here. And where Jordan would say, you know what, I want to guard. I want to shut down. So I hear that argument, but it's just, like you said, like, if Kobe's on, he's on. He's dominating. And then if he wasn't on, Shaq is dominating, like, literally on the offensive and defensive side of the floor. So when Shaq had said that, I was like, that's a no-brainer. Like, they're the best duo ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're just, if you think of NBA Jam, remember NBA Jam? Like, that's the, if we're playing NBA Jam, I'm taking those two. I don't know what we're talking about.
He says
right?
NBA Jam.
NBA Jam, right? But like I said, this kind of transitions into, I was watching a clip about someone saying, Feast or Famine, is Kobe Bryant top 5 all time? Pat, we'll go with you first. Kobe Bryant, top 5 all time.
Yes. At the tail end of the list, but yes, I think so. It just comes back again to just being a special talent, to have that Mamba mentality, that winning mentality, to always, bury your opponent, stick your foot on their throat, and just win. He was a special player in his time. I'm surprised that he didn't win more championships, to be honest with you. I think you can absolutely consider Kobe Bryant one of the top 5 players of all time. Chris, what do you think?
Oh, I mean, that just brings up a different question, is like, who's your top 5? Because, like, I think 1 and 2 is pretty much like unanimously like, well, not unanimously, but like it's definitely agreed upon. It's like it's it's Mike and LeBron 1 and 2. Some people will flip flop them, but whatever. But then like who's 3, 4, and 5? That's kind of like where it gets a little shaky. Me personally, I got like. I would have to put 3, 4 Lakers in the top 5, which is like crazy to think about. But you're gonna go Magic in there, you're gonna go Kareem in there, and you probably will go Kobe in there. But where you want to place them in there is subjective. And some people might even have Shaq in there over Kareem. So we're talking about 5 Lakers in the top 10, which is wild too. I will say yes, Kobe is in the top 5, but where he ranks between like 3 and 5, I'm not too sure, to be honest.
I'm gonna play something for y'all. This is kind of where I got the topic from, but T Mac went on a little rant here. So
They pile us off and wins 2 more, but plays for 3 and wins 2 more. They so disrespectful when it comes to Bean, bro. They talking about he ain't better than MJ. Well, he can't be top 5. He's not better than MJ. What? He's the closest thing to MJ. Well, tell me the other motherfucker that's close to MJ that played the game. Who else is close to MJ? Ain't nobody else close to MJ. So how is he excluded out of this conversation if he's close to MJ? And MJ is the greatest of all time. Help me understand that. Bro, that man is top 5. You ask anybody that has played against Michael Jordan and played against Kobe Bean Bryant in that era, it would tell you Bean is top 5 all time.
So this is why I brought this topic up, to see where y'all heads at, because you know what? I'm feasting on like Bean is top 5. You can't. I would need to like be persuaded 20,000 times for Kobe not to be in my top 5. Like, there's no way. Like, point blank, period.
Yeah.
The greatest of all time is Michael Jordan, in my opinion, and he's the closest thing to it. And he did similar things. And we could argue, and I've always said this, like with Jordan, if Jordan would have never took those years off to play baseball, he probably would have won 8 straight. Just saying.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. But same thing with Kobe and Shaq. If Kobe and Shaq could put their differences aside, like you said, Pat, if they could put their differences aside and would have stayed together after that three-peat, you mean to tell me they wouldn't have went on a little run? They probably would have won 6. Just saying, off the top of my head, I don't even know forget who won in 2000, was it 2004, 2005, 2006?
2004, I think, was the Mavericks? Or no, that might have been a little later on. The
Pistons,
yeah. 04 Pistons. 2005, I think, was the Spurs.
Yep.
2006 was... Who was in 2006?
The Heat.
The Heat in 06.
So granted, the Lakers lost to the Lakers lost that 2004. So then after that season, things changed.
Yeah.
But you mean to tell me they're not winning more after 2004?
I mean, I don't know if you had Shaq and Kobe on the same team after 2004, you probably are not getting the Kobe MVP season where he drops 81. Like, I don't see that happening. Like, so I don't know if like we're talking about Kobe in the same way that we talk about him now, because Shaq leaving basically made it Kobe's team, and Kobe just went on to further greatness from that point. But I don't know. It might have been the same outcome. I don't know.
So Kobe is up there next to MJ. Where's LeBron, Sean?
I have LeBron at 3 for me. I have Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. That's my top 3. Top 5, whoever fills out those 2 other spots, that'd be tough for me. Shaq might be like, you know what I think about Shaq? I'm gonna reference my thoughts on like the rap game, like top 5 rappers of all time. Shaq for me is like Jada, top 5 dead or alive. But a lot of folks have Jada, and Chris, you chime in if you thoughts on this, but a lot of folks put Jada in that like 5 to like 7 to 8 range of top rappers of all time. Where I feel like Shaq is in that same category. Like, I feel like he's in my top 5, but then if I sat here and like dissected it and kind of looked at stats and looked at different numbers, he might fall out of the top 5, or he might not. So, three, anything after 3, I'd have to like think about it. But top 3 is Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. That's my top 3 players all time. So,
yeah. I mean, from a rap, standpoint, it's definitely like subjective, especially once you get past 5, and everybody's like 3 to 5 is different. Like it's kind of like plug and play. Because some people listen to East Coast, some people listen to like down south, some people listen to West Coast. So it just depends. I think it's wild if a lot of people now might even put like Lil Wayne and like Andre 3000 as like their in their top 5, which is like I can't be mad at that. From a basketball
from Atlanta, maybe.
From a basketball standpoint, I think it definitely is subjective because Shaq, arguably, like we've been saying it, he is the best big man of all time. You could talk Kareem, you could talk Wilt, you could talk, Bill Russell, but I think when you talk about the most dominant player at his position, in my lifetime at least, it's Shaq. He don't really crack the top 5 for me because it's like it's hard to. It's weird because like again we're talking about like Lakers and like it's wild that like one franchise has had so many like great players and all-time great players. But I mean, is Shaq better than Kareem? I mean, Kareem was the all-time leading scorer at one point until he got passed by LeBron.
Is LeBron the best player of all time because he's the all-time scorer?
No, he's not. Just like Bill Russell's not the greatest of all time just because he's won the most championships. Like that's not the defining. That's not. I mean, winning is important. Like it's why we don't have like Karl Malone on any of these lists. That's why we don't have Barkley on any of these lists as like top 5. So winning does matter. I think the manner in which you win kind of is what's like solidifies Jordan as like number 1. It's like every single time he was in the opportunity to win a championship, he won a championship, and he was the best player while he did it, he took the biggest shots in the biggest moments every single time he did it. So I think that's why at least our generation will like say Jordan is number 1. But I mean, it's hard to argue LeBron, the comeback against the Warriors, the historic 73 win team, the bubble championship, the early Heat championships. I think like what puts LeBron in that conversation is the comeback against the Warriors. That's probably like why we're even like having this conversation. If he doesn't go back to Cleveland, I don't think we're talking about him as like top 5, to be honest. But yeah, to your point, the hardest comparison is like, look, we had a guy, closest thing to 23 was 24. And like, aside from winning 6 championships like Jordan, he basically had, very dominant runs and was like one of the best players for a long period of time. So yeah, I would probably I'm not gonna put Kobe 2. I'd probably put him 3, but it's very close, very very close. Pat, where do you rank Kobe in the top 5?
I have Kobe number 3 behind LeBron. LeBron, I think, just for all the points you just said, Chris, LeBron, not to say that Kobe wasn't a special passer, he was just such a special scorer that he mainly focused on that. But LeBron also has the ability to make a lot of the guys around him a lot better, and that was always something that I really, really loved about LeBron's game. And also his defensive ability to truly guard a center because of his size and his weight and his ability to defend extremely well. I have LeBron a hair above Kobe, but it's literally just a hair.
Yeah, I think it's that mentality. Like, the reason Kobe, in my opinion, Kobe is not better than Jordan is because, to your point, like how LeBron impacted the other facets of the game. Like, Jordan was a great defender, right? Where Kobe, he was a good defender. I don't think he was a great defender. And I also think that he didn't really make players around him better. But I think that's more of just that Mamba mentality. Like, I'm taking the shot. I'm not going to allow anyone else to win this game. I'm going to win this game. And I think that's kind of that puts the difference there. Where I could see that folks would say, all right, LeBron is better than Kobe. But that's why I said, like, if I had to pick the top 3 players of all time, those are the 3. And yeah, could 2 and 3 be interchangeable? Yeah, you could probably sell me on it, but outside of that, yeah, anything after 3 kind of it gets a little crazy. And I was looking at the Google machine, and I was looking at the top 10 on this list from The Athletic. It's just some random website, but top 10 they had Michael, Braun, Kareem, Russell, Magic, Wilt, Bird, Shaq, Tim Duncan, then Kobe's 10.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
That's tough.
It's tough.
That's tough.
I think Chris made the point a couple weeks ago where, not to say that there's anything wrong with it, but Bill Russell and Kareem were playing against plumbers and like janitors and carpenters, and now we have like the most physically gifted athletes on the planet. Everybody's 7 foot these days for the last 20 years. It's just a different game. I don't know how Kobe's that low.
You know what's crazy? To that point, I was watching Gilbert Arenas, a tape that he had about, I forget the context of what they were talking about, but he had mentioned about how what you just said, like it felt like he tried to make the same argument about like Jordan. Like, Jordan wasn't playing against the top talents. And I'm like, yeah, he was.
Yes, he was.
It's just he was so dominant. He was just so dominant that it looked like everyone else wasn't that good. Because that's what they were talking about. They were talking about Grant Hill. They were talking about how Grant Hill came into the NBA, and obviously we know Grant Hill, if he never got injured, what would his career have turned into? Mm-hmm. They said how Grant Hill was giving Jordan and any defenders problems. But yeah, that was like, it was weird that you can't tell me that he was playing against bums. Like, I don't want to hear that.
Also, too, like, you look at like when Jordan played, is like free agency wasn't like to the level that it is now. Players didn't like switch teams that often. So like all the top teams in the East all had an all-star caliber player, and were all like constructed with like guys that had all been playing together for like numbers of years. So like, the Pistons had like multiple all-stars on their squad when Jordan was facing them. Indiana was stacked like when Jordan was facing them. The Knicks had a solid squad. So it's like, to say that you weren't going against like talented guys, like, no, you had Jordan going against probably the most well-constructed teams in the 90s that there possibly were. So like, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. And then secondarily is like, yeah, Pat touched on it again. It's like, you know, you got to look at the eras and like what the competition was, you know, during those eras. Like the 90s was arguably one of the toughest eras to play basketball in because you still had hand checking. You still had guys that were like just out there as enforcers that would like lay the wood on you if you came into the paint. You know, guys weren't shooting 3-pointers like every single time. The refs weren't like giving you calls, you know, as many calls as they are giving you right now. So like it was a much tougher era to play basketball in. Like now there's so much like fluidity, like you can even just like throw your hands up and like, you know, you'll get a whistle call. Like, so I don't understand where that notion comes from.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here I was just analyzing this like list that I just shared with you. And this is what I mean when I say like after three, like after the top three, like 4 or 5, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, any given day could change for me. So like Kareem is obviously, he's up there. Like talent wise, he was playing against good talent, right? And accolade wise, he has the accolades. Bill Russell, yeah, he wasn't playing against good talent, but dude had 11 championships.
Yeah.
So maybe I put him at that bottom part, like that 3, and maybe put Russell at like 7 or 8. And then you have Magic, which arguably best point guard ever, right? But then that's where like I'm not putting Wilt over Shaq.
No.
Like I'm not putting Larry Bird. I'm not putting Larry Bird over Shaq. And obviously, we're not going to talk about Tim Duncan. Yeah, he's the greatest power forward of all time, but I'm not putting him over Shaq.
Yeah, if anything, I would put. If anything, that would be like my only like really point of contention because Duncan was great. Like Tim Duncan, you know, big fundamental, best player at the position, best power forward to ever play power forward. And he played in the same era as Kobe and Shaq. So, like, the fact that he has 5 championships in probably a very tough era coming out of, like, the 90s into, like, the early 2000s, or into that 2000s era, you know, we got to put some respect on his name, too. I would probably have him a little higher for me personally, but, yeah, I think the players are there as far as like who's on the list. It's just like where you're gonna rank them, I think, is like the biggest point of contention.
Agreed.
Cool. You got anything else?
Nah, that was it. Those were the 2 that really stood out to me. You know, I know again Kobe's statue was unveiled the other day, and kind of, you know, Shaq had a hot take in regards to saying, you know, they're the best duo, which I agree with that hot take. And yeah, you know, top 5 Kobe, top 5 all time. Like, I'd love to have a discussion with anyone that has Kobe outside of the top 5. Like, love to have that conversation. Let's talk about it.
We'll see.
Come on the show. Come on the pod. Let's talk about it.
I think this was a good episode, man. We covered a lot. Very hot, spicy takes. So, this has been another episode. Thank you all for listening. Feast or famine. Remember, like, share, subscribe. You know, hit that thumbs up button. Greatly appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one.